consecutive years where they've at least had a share or have won the conference outright. Some crazy streak they have going. I'm not going to bet against Kansas. However, I do not think they're going to win the Big 12 outright because their team just isn't good enough this year. Let's accept the fact. Let's accept the facts. Losing Udoka Azubuike to a hand injury, he's out for the season, has really hurt them. They're not a good road team. They're 1-5 on the road. That's not going to cut it. That's going to have to improve. And they're just kind of inconsistent. I think they're good enough to get a share of the Big 12 regular season title, but I think they're going to be sharing that title with the Iowa State Cyclones, who have already beat them once. So Iowa State's – sorry, I was distracted by that text in case you didn't see it, Emmy. The Iowa State has already split the season series with Kansas. They have good guard play. They have the Big 12's leading scorer in Mariel Shayok at like 19.6 points per game. Lindell Wigington has become the second-year player we all thought he could be after coming off that injury last season. If he really starts to emerge and they have that Horton Tucker kid, they have very good guard play, a good coach, and they match up well with a lot of teams within the Big 12. As of late, I don't really like the way Texas Tech is playing. I think they do have maybe the second best player in the conference, Jarrett Culver, who I think that's who you were thinking of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I just don't like the way they've been playing. Their offense has stalled at times. They are well coached. Chris Beard should be a Coach of the Year candidate, but their offense is kind of stalled at times, and their defense has struggled to stop some of the better guards in the conference. So they still could. They still have a month to get it together, and I'm not counting them out. But right now, I have more confidence in the way Iowa State's playing and the way Kansas is playing than I do Texas Tech. And I think those two teams will have a share of the Big 12 regular season title.
Okay. I can definitely see that. Iowa State is playing really good right now.
Mm-hmm.
But the only reason I had deferred to Texas Tech is because they have that go-to, you know?
Yeah.
The offense does struggle at times, though. You're right. That's very true.
Yeah.
But with that, we'll move on to the Big Ten. We'll have you go first this time.
Well, I did put down Michigan, but in case y'all don't know, Michigan was just upset by Iowa, 74-59.
Wow.
At Iowa. So we're gonna likely move down significantly in Monday's version of the AP poll when that comes out. But I still think they're going to win the Big Ten, even though they did lose tonight, because the only real other contender I see is Michigan State. And in case y'all don't know, Josh Langford, their second best player, and maybe even their best guard. Well, I won't say that because Cassius Winston is their best guard. But their second best player on their team, aside from Nick Ward, is out for the season. He was ruled out for the season. I don't know the specifics of the injury, but he's out for the year. And that's going to put even more pressure on Cassius Winston than there already is.
Yeah.
And that wears down. It's a long conference grind. And by the time you get through this conference schedule, get through the conference tournament, by the time March comes around, he's going to be worn down. And you're going to have to find other options. Nick Ward's going to have to start to produce more. The other guys can't get in foul trouble. They're going to have to start shooting more threes to make up for the production lost by Joshua Langford. And if you guys didn't watch last weekend, they did not look good at all in that blowout loss to Purdue. Purdue's like an outside dark horse, but they have too much ground to make up in a month to grab a share of the Big Ten title. They're still a good team. I think they could be a second weekend team in the tournament. But as far as winning the Big Ten regular season title, they have too much ground to make up. The Josh Langford injury hurts Michigan State for a variety of reasons. I like Michigan's depth better than I do Michigan State, even though Michigan State has both of them have great coaches. I'm not even going to bring up that point, but probably a better coach, I'll say. John Beelen's great, but Tom Izzo has the better resume. But even with all those things being said, I still like Michigan because of their depth and their matchup against Michigan State.
Right.
So there you go.
I'm choosing Michigan as well. I 100% agree with you. Guys like Jordan Poole and I feel like Jordan Poole is a better NBA prospect than someone like Nasir Little, but that's just my opinion. Someone who's polished and has a tight handle, can defend, can shoot the ball well, and he's one of their main players, but he's not even their best player, you could argue. And having guys like that they're going to be tough to beat.
Yeah.
With the defense they play. Obviously, with the fact that they scored 59 points.
Yeah.
Tonight is kind of concerning, but on the road in a hostile environment, it's tough. I mean, you're gonna have a rough night every once in a while.
For sure. So with that being said, what's the next conference we have? Is it the SEC?
Yeah, SEC. Yeah.
Yeah. As far as the SEC goes, Kentucky, the Wildcats have started to play a lot better over the past 2 to 3 weeks. They're right back in the top 10, right back in contention for the SEC crown. But I'm still picking Tennessee Volunteers to win the SEC regular season title because they have more depth and their two best players are better than any other players in the conference, aside from maybe Ashton Higgins, the guard for Kentucky. Look, what Grant Williams brings to the table, you can make a good argument he should be the National Player of the Year right now. I wouldn't say it, but you can make a very good argument. My top three would probably be Zion, the Ethan Happ kid from Wisconsin, and then I might put Grant Williams right there in that group. If you didn't see the game against Vanderbilt, a game in which they were in jeopardy of actually losing on the road to about a 500 Vanderbilt team, Williams put up 43 points, scored half the team's points, and shot 23 of 23 from the free throw line and made clutch free throws down the stretch, got clutch buckets in the post. This guy can score in the high post. He can score in the low post. He can shoot the three. He can play good defense. He can do it all. And then you add in his sidekick, Admiral Schofield, who's a better three-point shooter and can also probably better at creating off the dribble. So their skill sets complement each other nicely. They have a really good coach in Rick Barnes, who really gets his guys motivated to play on a night-in, night-out basis. And I like their depth better than Kentucky. I think Kentucky started to play good a little too late. I think they still could win the conference tournament and definitely go deep into the NCAA tournament in March Madness. However, as far as winning the conference tournament, the regular season title, I'm picking Tennessee. And I think if they haven't matched up already, I don't think they've matched up already. I think these two teams have a matchup coming up soon, so it will certainly be interesting to see who wins that game, and that could change a lot. But as of right now, the nod goes to the Tennessee Volunteers.
Again, I 100% agree with you. I picked Tennessee as well. This team, run by Rick Barnes, they've slowly had a resurgence of this program. Not typically a basketball school, but this program is starting to become a perennial contender. If I'm not mistaken, I think they made the Elite Eight last year. I would have to confirm that.
Yes.
But yeah. Okay. Yes. So they made the Elite Eight last year. So this team has experience. So that's a huge plus. And also because a lot of these teams in the SEC are slightly underperforming or they don't have experience.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly.
That's why I feel Tennessee will.
That's one of the downsides to Kentucky. The talent has started to show in the past 2 to 3 weeks, which is why they've been playing better, because talent can outweigh and cover a lot of problems as far as like team chemistry and all that stuff. But when it gets crunch time, experience and guard play wins out, and Tennessee has that. I forgot the name of their point guard. He's also an overlooked player in conference. So those are things to look out for, and that's why Tennessee will probably grab the regular season title. The last conference we have to do is the Pac-12. I didn't do a lot of research on the Pac-12, so I'm not going to say a lot about the Pac-12.
Yeah, let's just get through this one and then get to our...
The conference is not good. I'm just picking Washington solely because they are 8-0 in conference so far. I think they have some good players, and I think they're going to win the regular season title.
Yeah. When I look at this Washington team, they lost to Gonzaga only by 2, one of the top teams in the country.
Yeah.
That's a great sign.
Mm-hmm.
So
a Gonzaga team that beat Duke, for sure.
And that to me proves something, that they're like, I don't know any of their players, but clearly they're a team that can play with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm picking them to win the Pac-12. Because let's be honest, the Pac-12 is pretty trash.
Yeah, as I said in a previous podcast, when we were doing the tiers of teams as far as each conference goes, and how many teams would make the tournament out of each conference, I said I only see maybe 3, at the most 4, but probably 3 teams getting in the tournament from the Pac-12, and those teams would be Washington, Arizona State, and forget the other.
Maybe UCLA?
Yeah, maybe UCLA. So, it's not a very strong conference. Their record against top 50 Ken Palm opponents is horrendous compared to other conferences. And Washington is just playing the best right now of any of the teams, and that's important, especially when the calendar turns to February and you get into the second half of the conference schedule.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move on then.
Do we have any Q&As?
Let's see what voicemails we have here. No, not yet. Y'all have been slacking. All right. I'm gonna put my number into the chat. But with that, do you want to move on to the trade deadline talk?
Yeah, I think we should do. So I think what we're planning to do is we're going to talk about the Kristaps trade first. We'll get your reaction to that in a second because you are the Mavericks fan. We're going to talk about the Lakers' assets and what they should do at the trade deadline. And then we're just going to theorize or fantasize some trades for the top trade assets at this trade deadline.
Right.
So with that being said, talk about the Kristaps trade.
Okay. Here's my take on it. Obviously, I'm ecstatic. We just got a top 15 player for three guys that we would have moved on from anyway. Wesley Matthews was on an expiring contract. DeAndre Jordan was on an expiring contract. And Dennis Smith Jr., although really, really young, I just unfortunately things just weren't going to work out with him and Doncic, and that had shown itself to be clear throughout the season. But I wish him the best in New York. But back to the details of the trade. We're giving up 2 first-round picks, 2021 unprotected and 2023 top 10 protected.
Okay.
And that the reason why that's relevant is because Kristaps Porzingis might just be a rental. If he signs the qualifying offer for $4.5 million next season, then he is an unrestricted free agent in the summer of 2020. Yeah. He'll be unrestricted free agent, and if he leaves, there'll be nothing we can do about it. Obviously, the good news is we didn't give up that much, but you still have to think, like, what if he leaves? Another plus of the trade, though, that people are overlooking is the Mavericks now have over $30 million in cap to lure in free agents to come play with Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. And to me, that's huge. That's crucial.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm super excited about the trade. I just can't wait until he comes back and we can finally just see them play together and see how everything fits, you know?
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give each team a grade based off what I know from the premise of the trade details. Because obviously we haven't seen any of the players on their new teams and how it affects the team's play. But just right out of the gates, just give them a grade. So Dallas, I give Dallas an A. Okay? Simple as that. It's a very aggressive trade, and we'll talk about why in a minute. But I think it will be worthwhile from Dallas's point of view. They wouldn't have made this trade if they didn't have any confidence whatsoever that they could convince Kristaps Porzingis in the next year and a half to sign in Dallas long term. Let's just get that out of the way. Now, obviously, in trading for Kristaps Porzingis, you're acquiring an extreme elite young talent at a very cheap price, while also adding a very adequate wing player and scorer in Tim Hardaway Jr., who I think is going to pair very nicely in the backcourt with Luka Doncic. In addition, as I said just a second ago, Dallas still has a full season and about a half, maybe a quarter, to convince Kristaps to sign long-term next offseason. Not this coming one, but next offseason when he becomes unrestricted.
Right.
Now, his health is an issue, obviously. He struggled to stay healthy for a full season thus far in his career, but his talent justifies this risk if Dallas is able to keep him long-term. Because once you secure him long-term, it doesn't matter if he's healthy and you get him long-term, then you'll be fine.
Exactly.
The only real risk here for the Mavericks is obviously not being able to retain Kristaps in the 2020 offseason and giving up a young player with the potential of Dennis Smith Jr.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to hurt him as bad as we all think it is, because they got Kristaps and he kind of outweighs, at his full potential, he kind of outweighs the players they gave up. Those are the only two risks. Giving up a player with the potential and athletic ability of a Dennis Smith Jr., who will probably actually do better in New York than he did in Dallas.
Exactly.
And potentially not being able to re-sign Kristaps. Other than that, Dallas hit a home run. They get an A for this trade. As far as the Knicks go,
oh boy.
A lot of people have jumped on the Knicks. This is the worst trade ever. This is horrible, whatever. I'm not going to give them as bad as a grade as you may think. I'm going to give them a B-. Now let me explain. And for one reason only. I don't believe the Knicks. Now, obviously, I'm not inside the organization, but the Knicks didn't make this deal without extreme confidence in their ability or in themselves that they would be able to acquire at least one, maybe two marquee free agents this season. Because we obviously know all the names that are going to be out there. Maybe Kyrie, obviously Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, if he doesn't opt in with Golden State, DeMarcus Cousins. There are a lot of Klay Thompson, a lot of names that are going to be out on the market. And I don't think the Knicks made this move without some level of confidence they could get one of those guys, maybe even two of them. Now, the good news for the Knicks is they do shed $31 million, which was going to be owed to Tim Hardaway Jr. and Courtney Lee, and the $17.1 million that was supposed to be given to Kristaps Porzingis, which gives them upward of $70 million in cap space this coming off season, which is enough to get two max free agents if it were to play out that way. The final cap number will depend on where their draft pick lands and how they decide to go about Alonzo Trier's $3.6 million team option, but we can get to that at a later point. Now, I think Dennis Smith Jr. is going to be a very useful piece for this Knicks team because of his potential and his cheap salary, $4.5 million for next season. Now they have, remember, 2 years ago they passed up on Dennis Smith to get Frank Ntilikina, and now they have both of them. And I think their skill set, they're going to complement each other nicely, given that Ntilikina has played off the ball for much of his first two seasons, and Dennis Smith Jr. has been ball dominant for some of his time in Dallas. Now, it may take Smith Jr. some more time to become the quality point guard we all think he can be, but he remains a very promising prospect whose value I think is going to be upgraded with the Knicks. We've seen former lottery picks from Trey Burke to Emmanuel Mudiay put up better numbers in New York's offense than in their previous stops. So we've seen it happen before, and I think this junior is going to be better suited for this New York Knicks team than he was with the Dallas Mavericks. And I think it's a win for Dennis Smith Jr. himself because he didn't seem, as you mentioned, very satisfied or happy with the situation in Dallas. Anyway, so that's another plus for the Knicks. They clear cap space. They get a very promising prospect to go along with it. The only downside is it is a very massive gamble in this trade. With this trade, because if they do end up striking out in free agency, they don't get a marquee free agent, and they end up unlucky in the draft lottery and are unable to come up with the next, Kristaps. They may end up starless and have to start another rebuild if this doesn't work out. But as far as clearing up cap space, having confidence in their ability to get at least one marquee free agent and getting a guy like Dennis Smith Jr., it's not as bad as some people might think, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. So feel free to comment.
Let me address the Knicks' point of view of this trade. For me, for them to be able to win this trade, it has to be one of two things. They use the assets to get AD. That's one. Or two, they get one or two MVP candidates. Like, I'm not talking borderline all-stars. I mean MVP candidates. Kyrie, KD, and that's pretty much the end of the list. Maybe Klay Thompson, but Klay Thompson leading the team, that's still, I don't know if that's enough.
That's not the answer.
It's not. I don't think that's what they're looking for anyway.
I mean, you're right, but I was just, that's certainly true, but I was just talking about, right off the bat. I think Dallas is going to win the trade as long as, if Kristaps Porzingis stays, it's obvious they win the trade. But, the Knicks don't make this trade without, some confidence in they may be getting a player like Kevin Durant or maybe even Kyrie Irving, who has voiced his uncertainty on his future in Boston in the past couple of days. So we'll just see what happens.
Here's the thing I don't get about the Kevin Durant one, though. So say you get Kevin Durant. Yeah. He's 30 years old. I think he maybe has 5 elite years left. Okay. To be fair. And but you just gave up Kristaps Porzingis, who is 23 years old, and already averaging 24 points, 8 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks per game at 7'3" and can shoot from 40. I mean, this could be a colossal mistake for the Knicks. I mean, if this goes wrong, it will be one of the worst trades of all time.
Yeah, and I said that at the beginning of my spiel. Right. But, we'll just have to see what happens. There's no way of knowing until it all plays out. Yeah. And at the very least, they cleared lots of cap space to at least bring in some good players. If they're not stars, they can be good role players. Right. To at least be somewhat respectable as a team. And they got a good young prospect. He's no Kristaps Porzingis, nowhere close, but he's a good young point guard. And at the very least, that's what they're getting out of this. Yeah. Now, if they don't end up acquiring a marquee free agent, and, we're just talking about I don't think they're going to get Kevin Durant. I think they may get Kyrie. I don't know. They may get Kyrie. They might be smart to use some of these assets to go after Anthony Davis. But, we're just talking about what's right now, and that's the state of this trade right now. They cleared cap space, and they got Dennis Smith Jr.
Yeah.
And the only thing you can hope for if you're a Knicks fan is that you get one of those free agents that we talked about.
Right. With that, I think we can move on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's transition to this Anthony Davis sweepstakes.
Okay.
If y'all didn't know, a report just came out. Anthony Davis Sr., Anthony Davis's dad, just sent a text to ESPN saying that he wouldn't want Anthony Davis playing for the Celtics. I don't know if that holds any weight, but that's definitely concerning if you're a Celtics fan.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So that's just something to think about. But with that being said, the Lakers and the Celtics are still the front runners. Most NBA fans already know this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much – those two teams are pretty much where I see him going. Whether he stays there is the question. I think he would stay in LA, but in Boston, I don't know.
Yeah, probably not in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to tell right now the future of Kyrie Irving. That would probably play a big part in whether he would stay there or not. And then also just I'm not really sure he's, as his dad said, comfortable for some reason or other that I don't really know being there long term.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the East, I don't know. There's some other reason hasn't come out yet. I think the more likely destination, most likely destination is the Lakers. The question is, how is he going to get there? And when is he going to get there? Is it going to be by the trade deadline coming up this next Thursday? Or will we go there, get there somehow in the off season? So do you have any fantasy trades as far as the Lakers go for Anthony Davis?
Mm-hmm. For me, the Lakers, if they offer Josh Hart, KCP,
Mm-hmm.
and Josh Hart, KCP, Lonzo, and Brandon Ingram, to me, that's an offer that I would wait until the summer for, because you got to weigh your options and you got to know what can the Knicks offer me? Okay, what can the Celtics offer me? What can the Raptors offer me? Or whichever team. So that I think the Pelicans would be really, really dumb if they end up taking a trade before February 7th. That would be a huge mistake.
They certainly don't want to rush it.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me Del Demps, the GM of the New Orleans Pelicans, is very hesitant to actually trade Davis to the Lakers as of right now.
Right.
There were reports came out yesterday, I think, that said he was not returning the Lakers' phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a later report that also said he did eventually get back to the Lakers, but still didn't seem to be very motivated to get a deal done before the deadline. So, no, I don't think it's very likely that a deal gets done between these two teams. I think you might have a better chance if you were able to bring in maybe a third team into the situation. I don't know how that would work, but as far as Magic Johnson and Dell Demps working out a deal before this Thursday's deadline, it's not very likely. So whether that's a trade in the off season or when Anthony Davis eventually hits free agency, they're going to have to find another time to get him. Now, the urgency for the Lakers to get him is there. I don't foresee them, even if they did get Davis this year, winning anything this year. They may get to the conference finals, but it all depends on the matchups within the playoffs. But if they were able to get him this summer, it would definitely do big deeds for the Lakers as far as the future goes and the time remaining they have with LeBron James on their team. So there's lots to intake as far as the situation goes, but who knows?
Okay, I've formulated a couple of trades from not the Celtics or the Lakers, teams that you may not think about right away. I've made a couple of trades for possible trades for AD. One would be from the Oklahoma City Thunder. Terrence Ferguson, Steven Adams, and 4 or 5 first-round picks in alternating seasons well into the future. I mean, I don't know if the Pelicans would take it, but Paul George, AD, and Russell Westbrook. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, that would be intimidating for the NBA in general. It's just, we don't know if those, what was I going to say? I forgot. It's just the aspect of giving up the 4 whatever first-round picks over alternating years, how that would play out, whether you want to take that risk and whether you think you're going to stay a contender for the next 7 years or whatever, however long those picks last for. But I like the potential of a player like Terrence Ferguson. He's super young, I believe. Is he a teenager? Or is he like 20?
He just turned 20.
Just turned 20. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he's got a lot of room for improvement. And then Steven Adams is just the very good center, role player, power forward, whatever you want to call him. So you get a nice veteran player, a very young player with a lot of potential, and 4, maybe, I don't know what you said, maybe 5 first-round picks. I mean, I would take it if that was the best offer on the table. Come this offseason, it won't be, but if it was, I would take it.
Yeah, if you think about it, if you're the Pelicans, if you get Steven Adams, then it becomes Drew Holiday's team, and you're running pick and roll with him. I feel like that would bode well for them. I just feel like it still doesn't fix their biggest problem, which is their bench.
Yeah.
So that would be a big negative for that one.
Yeah.
Another trade would be the Denver Nuggets. It depends on if the Nuggets are sold on this core they have. Obviously, I don't think they're going to win much this year, but in the future, if the Warriors team breaks apart, will this team be able to go the distance as it is? Because they don't have that much cap flexibility. They're kind of stuck the way they are now. And if they were to make this move, it would be win now mode, basically. Here's the trade. Michael Porter Jr.,
okay,
Gary Harris,
Mm-hmm.
Will Barton, and then Monte Morris.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Davis.
A second-round pick for Anthony Davis and Solomon Hill to throw in a bad contract to line up the deal for the Pelicans.
Okay. Yeah, those are, I mean, we all know what Gary Harris brings to the table, although he's had some injuries here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Monte Morris, a guy who played at Iowa State. He's developed into a good player off that bench. We have yet to see what Michael Porter Jr. Is going to do in the NBA and what production he will bring, but we think we know what he's going to bring as far as athleticism, being an all-around guy, that kind of Jason Tatum type player.
Right.
We kind of think we know what we're going to get. And then who was the other player in the trade? Will Barton.
Will Barton, right. Will Barton.
Another good role player for the Pelicans. I like it. I mean, I don't know if it's the best thing they get offered, but
right.
I mean, it's something.
Because if you're the Nuggets, you gotta shoot your shot. I mean, you're not going to be getting any of these guys in free agency. You're not a top destination. So if you're going to win a championship, you got to make a splash and you got to make moves. Got to take risks every once in a while and see if it works out for you. The key here is they don't give up Jamal Murray. So you still have that Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic core, which is really huge. But the lack of depth they lose. The lack of depth would be a problem, I'd say, if they were to make this trade. Did you make any trades or?
Well, I had one that I had on the NBA trade machine on ESPN that would work involving the Lakers, but it did involve a third team. It involves a lot. So I'm going to lay this out for you right now, and you can give me your thoughts on it before I lay it out.
All right, I'm listening.
So this might sound weird at first, but let me just say it, and then you can give your opinions.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so obviously we know Anthony Davis would go to the Lakers along with some young players, Sheik Diallo and Tim Frazier, okay, to even out the salaries. And then the Pelicans get, in return from the Lakers, Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, ACP, and then this is where the third team comes in, the Orlando Magic. Okay? The Orlando Magic would give the New Orleans Pelicans Jonathan Simmons.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And a first-round pick. Okay. Maybe one or two first-round picks.
Ooh, okay.
And the Magic would get Lonzo Ball. Is that too much to give up for the Lakers? I mean, they do give up Ingram, Kuzma, and Ball.
Okay. So Ingram and Kuzma to the Pelicans.
Yeah.
Jonathan Simmons to the Pelicans as well. Also 2 first-round picks.
Yep.
And then Lonzo Ball to the Magic.
Yep. And Anthony Davis, Sheik Diallo, and Tim Frazier go to the Lakers.
Wow. Okay.
It's a big trade.
The key there would be the Magic.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would take that, you know?
Yeah.
If you switch Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball, I think that would make it better.
Okay.
But it just depends on the prospect the Magic would prefer. I know they do need a point guard though, so maybe they would want Lonzo.
They have been in search of their point guard for the future. They do have limited flexibility as far as cap space goes.
Right.
This summer to add one in free agency, and then this year's draft is one that doesn't have a lot of very good point guards in it, outside of Ja Morant from Murray State.
Right.
So if they were able to get Ball, it might be they might have their future point guard, but it's just whether or not they would want that, I guess. So that's one I drew up on the NBA trade machine, but that's all I got.
That's really well thought out. That's definitely something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
And I was talking about it, when we were doing in the conversation earlier, is how maybe the Lakers or the Pelicans would want to bring in a third team into the trade to make it, I guess, more realistic, or what's the word?
More realistic.
To facilitate.
Right.
But we'll see.
Okay.
Anything else?
Okay. Yeah. Another team I have on my list is the Toronto Raptors. It would be Pascal Siakam, Serge Ibaka, and a couple of firsts, along with DeLon Wright for Anthony Davis.
Okay. So what did you say? Pascal Siakam, DeLon Wright, and who else?
Pascal Siakam, DeLon Wright, Serge Ibaka, and a couple of firsts.
Okay.
Not this year's, obviously, because it's with the Spurs, but